to Just Advisor Things. We have a brand new episode this week. We are talking with Leisha Cowart from Florida. So, how are you doing today? We're so excited to have you on.
I'm great. It's been an icky, rainy day, but other than that, let's talk about some yearbook stuff.
Yay, let's do it. Yeah, it's actually been kind of cloudy here too. No rain yet, but we need the rain here in Texas, so I am not complaining. We're gonna let it happen. So let's see. Tell us a little bit about, I like to just let us get to know you a little bit. Tell us about how you got into yearbook advising and a little bit about your program too.
Okay. I actually got started in yearbook in high school. I was the yearbook editor's sports editor in my high school, and then embarked on what I thought was going to be a career in journalism, and
A common experience.
didn't like that at all. And sort of ran from teaching is my family business, and I ran from it for a long time, but eventually got sucked in. And I've done yearbook at 4 different schools before I got to this one, but I never did it for longer than a year. And in each one of those situations, I had to start from scratch and then left. So where I am now, I'm at Nice High School in Ponte Vedra, Florida, and it's my 6th year. And I finally feel like now I know what that was all about, was building a program and getting it up and running. My school is relatively large. We're about 2,000 some odd students. I have a class of 27 in my yearbook class, and it is an honors elective by application only. And that, I think, has made the biggest difference, is being able to interview, choose my staffers,
Right.
so I don't get stuck with people that don't want to be there, which I think has made the biggest difference in building this program.
Right. So as an honor elective, every state and program, school district and everything is different. And I think that's something a lot of advisors run into, is because it's not an honors program. Sometimes they don't get that honors credit. And then you get those really ambitious kids, which are the ones you want,
Right.
who can't take the class because they don't get the credit that they want, or they have a full schedule already. So is it an honors credit as well?
Yes. After my first year in discussions with our principal, um, I didn't really even have to ask. She asked if that would be something. And it really does. It works for us very well, because I do get those honor students, and we work around schedules a good bit to be able to keep them. That's the best thing too, is to get them in and keep them throughout their high school years.
For sure. I love that support too from your administrator, understanding that that's going to retain and attract the best students in order to help you grow the program. Like it's a cycle. And so that support is like unmatched. Like that's great.
Exactly. And I think that is also a huge reason why we've been able to grow the program and why I'm still here.
For sure, for sure. So, do you do yearbook and other publications, or just yearbook and what other classes?
Yearbook and honors 10th grade English and 11th grade English. I have done journalism 1 a couple of years, and I think next year I'll be doing a writing course, but mostly English.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Does your school also have other publications like newspaper or broadcast?
We do have TV, video, broadcast, and we do have a newspaper.
Right.
More of
Okay.
a news magazine, I think.
Yeah, the reason I asked is I just saw a post in one of the Facebook groups this morning or last night asking, are there teachers out there that just get to do journalism, or is it common to teach everything else? And these poor advisors there's hundreds of comments already, and people are like, no, I teach 17 things. I just feel so bad because it's a lot of work, just to do one, let alone also teach other classes. So yeah. So I guess with that, my first question just naturally would be, how do you find the balance between teaching the English classes, especially 2 different ones, and doing the publication classes?
Well, I do. We're on a block schedule, so our classes are 90 minutes, so when I have a planning period, I have 90 minutes, and mine is built into a lunch period. So I actually have 2 hours. I usually come in earlier in the morning, and I try to balance as much of my time as possible with yearbook and English. Fortunately, with English, I've been teaching it a long time, so I'm not having to reinvent the wheel. And the same thing with yearbook. Once we get it started, it kind of is my during yearbook class, I'm troubleshooting, fixing little things. And so there is a fair amount of outside of class time. I do try to make sure I usually don't take things home at night or on the weekends. unless it's right on deadline or I have to grade a set of essays. But I tried really hard to keep that work-life balance.
Yeah. Has it always been that way? Like you've worked intentionally to get that, or because you've been doing it so long, you like, because in the beginning, I mean, I struggled hardcore
Oh,
with that
definitely.
balance.
Yeah, definitely having the experience and kind of, I feel like you could throw me into a class without a lesson plan and I could come up with something pretty quickly. But it does. The first few years of teaching, I always say you really don't know what you're doing until about year 3.
Yeah.
So it definitely is a benefit of experience of kind of figuring out what's the most important, what are the things that you can let slide a little bit and catch up later. But it's a struggle.
Yeah, for sure. I think especially new teachers, I think there's a lot of turnover right now, especially in advising, and a lot of that has to do with them not having that balance, like
Sure.
especially in the beginning, you're just trying to absorb so much information. It's natural to feel that overwhelm. So,
And being
well,
new to advising a yearbook, that I remember my first year here was I kind of came in following a popular advisor. And I was like, I don't want to come in and be a drill sergeant from day one.
right.
So just kind of meeting your kids where they are. And we look back at that first book now and we kind of laugh. But at the same time, I'm very proud of it because I feel like the kids really did take ownership of that book, and we produced a good product, and we were proud of it.
Right. So that is another great point is especially because you've done it a couple times, it sounds like taking over a program, either maybe in a great situation where that advisor was really loved, or taking over in a not so great situation
Yes.
where, things are kind of in shambles, maybe. What is your advice for a new advisor coming in and taking over a staff that another teacher has already
Well, you have
nurtured?
to acknowledge their experience because most of them have been in yearbook for at least a year, and you let them lead where you can. There were certain things that I definitely wanted to change. I wanted to start toward design, coherence, and theme relevance, and those sorts of things. It did take probably about 3 years before I finally, I think, had my program in place. We fought the battle like so many do with senior quotes. I was dead set against them, but we finally, after year 3, we got rid of them. And my thing was, we'll do it this year if nothing gets through that's inappropriate. I was like, because that's my job on the line, not
Oh
the kids.
yeah.
And so we did it. The next year, I said, this is the last year. And they were, and the funny thing is, I really haven't had a lot of pushback. Every once in a while, somebody would say, I wish we could do senior quotes. And, sorry.
Yeah.
And, but I think don't be afraid to make some changes, but also you don't want to come in and just wholesale change everything because that's going to, the kids are going to think like that you don't trust them, you don't appreciate them, you don't value what they already do.
Hmm.
And so there's a lot of compromise, and you have to know your non-negotiables of what as it's your job. And I usually tell my students that, listen, you leave here, you do something, you mess up, you go on, it's no big deal. Something happens, this is my job on the line.
Hmm.
And so I am going to be the final say on things that affect my job. And
Right.
that the kids seem to understand that,
Yeah.
but it's just choose the mountains you're willing to die on. And some of them aren't worth it.
Right, for sure. That's a good point. I know as a new teacher and as a young teacher too, it's really because especially if you're doing high school, like you're not that much older than those kids. And so it's really hard to negotiate with them and not feel like you're hurting their feelings and take it personal. I think also one piece of advice I can't remember who told me is like, because I started halfway through the year, which is, particularly difficult. But just observe in the
Right.
beginning, take some
Yes.
notes on what you want to change the next year. But like you said, it takes about 3 years to get your own crop of kids. And so expect that, it's going to be a process of growth. So I think that's great advice. Did you say that you moved and you started over every single time and then you left? So you were only there like a year and then
Yeah.
left?
Well, some of them I was only did yearbook for a year, and
Okay.
it was yearbook had nothing to do with why I left any of those schools. It just kind of worked
Yeah.
out that way. But I had gotten to the point where I said I would never do yearbook again.
We all get there.
I'm sure. But I had also never had a program that was at least somewhat established,
Right.
administration that was supportive, and the freedom and the ability within my schedule that I wasn't teaching 4 or 5 different preps and things like that. So it just kind of the perfect storm when I got
Right.
here, just kind of all came together to work. So I don't know how much of it was me and how much it was just the situation I found myself in,
Yeah.
and it's been great.
But it sounds like it was a good fit, and
Yes,
the
for
universe
sure.
brought you to where you needed to be there now. So
Exactly.
that's good. Okay, well, in our prep, you mentioned that there's a couple of things that you feel like you really mastered. And I love when advisors want to share that because I mean, there's 1,000 different ways to do things, and every program is different. But I think it's so helpful, especially because advisors are by themselves on campus, to hear how other people are doing it and then take bits and pieces and
Sure.
figure out their process. So one of them was picture day, which is a huge logistic nightmare. And most advisors are like, I have no idea even where to get started. So walk us through your process and tell us all your tips.
Okay. So most of our students, probably 90 to 95% of our students, have an English class. And I'm part of the English department, so that kind of helps. But we do it through English classes, and the teachers are pretty receptive to being able to do that. So we have some student communications. We have a daily news show. We have our Panther Press, which is our weekly parent email. We have a social media program, and we also do posters around campus to let students know Picture Day is coming. Our photo company provides us with order forms. We distribute those through our English classes as well about 2 weeks before. The day of Picture Day, we schedule it in our auditorium. I use my staffers like a field trip and I don't even have to be in there. I did the first year or so, but now my students run it and it works great. So this photo company provides us with name cards that are already done. So this gives us a chance to correct anything that's wrong. And there are always things when they get the list
Right.
from the district that are the teacher's wrong, the grade's wrong, the name is wrong. So this gives us a chance to correct that right in the moment. And so the students are given their name card. We schedule, like I said, during the English classes, and we have about 8 to 10 sections going on during any given period. Since our classes are 90 minutes, I usually create a schedule and sort of put the teachers in groups every 15 or 20 minutes. But because we have 90 minutes of class, if a teacher says, hey, I'm giving a test, can I come at the end? Sure. So it works out really well. There's never a crowd. We bring them into the auditorium. We send them to the outside walls to go down. They go up onto the stage. We have 3 cameras. Then they come down the center, sit until their entire class is done, and then out the door they go. Start to finish for a class and a teacher, maybe 10 to 15 minutes from the time they leave their class till they get back. So teachers appreciate that it's not a tremendous interruption to their day. We do have, I said, a few students who don't have an English class, so we communicate to them and they can come down at any time during the day and we give them a pass back to class. For our teachers, teachers have to be on campus by 8:30. So we set up so they can come first thing, or if they wait during the day, we allow them to come in, jump to the front of the line, get their picture and go on about their day. But it works really well. Having that block schedule, I know, is a luxury not everybody has. But even when we were on a 7-period day when I first started, it got a little hairy, but we were able to complete it through that. And we had to stick to the schedule a little bit more completely, but it works really well. Fortunately, having a photo company that will provide you 3 cameras or or even we do a retake day and we only do 2, but it just having that schedule, having the teachers that buy in. I also sometimes about this time of year, I'll do a lunch for the English teachers as a thank you, just kind of a box lunch from somewhere, but just as a thank you. So that's that, having that schedule and getting them to follow it is really important.
Right. So have you run into any issues that you've had to kind of work around, like that you've done differently in the past and then made changes, or like, because I think that's pretty much how like most photo companies run, I guess. But I sometimes had like teachers push back on class time. Have you had any issues like that?
When I send out the schedule, usually about a week ahead, I'll say, hey, does anybody have a conflict? Are you doing something that you need to change? And usually I can get the teachers to work it out either I can help them, or they work it out among themselves. Our school is set up that we're in pods. And so there are 2 pods of English teachers. So between, they have some common areas. So usually they can work out the schedule. Hey, I can go first if I can go last. And
Good.
they're pretty good about helping trade up if there's a conflict.
Right, that's good. And you being on the English department, I'm sure like you kind of have an idea of like maybe a major project or test or
Sure,
something that
sure.
like when you're scheduling it, you can kind of work around.
And
So,
we schedule that pretty early in the year, and I go ahead
right,
and send out the dates and say, hey guys, picture day is this date. And so they know it's coming and they can plan around it.
right. So do you, as a program, receive the commission from the portraits? Because I've had other advisors come and not even realize that there's commission and the principal's fund gets it or something, but the advisor is doing all this work. And then they have to kind of negotiate with their principal. So how do you guys manage that?
That is a really good question. We are in the process of re-examining our photo company. There's some things that we are thinking about changing. So that is one of my questions to answer. I don't know what our commission is. I know we get some. I don't think it goes into the yearbook account. But that's a really good question. I should find
Yeah,
out.
I think a lot of advisors don't realize that. They don't
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
but it is a fundraiser for the school. And not
Sure.
that necessarily the yearbook fund should get all of it because it is a general school activity. But, you know, especially if you guys and your students are doing that work,
Yes.
you know, that goes towards workshops or
Sure.
cameras or training
And
of some
that's
kind.
actually one of the things we're going to talk about, because we feel like we're doing a lot of the work of distributing the order forms, distributing
Yeah,
the packages when they come in, and
right.
that's time consuming. And so,
For
sure,
sure.
I think that is definitely a negotiating point that advisors should look into.
For sure. Okay, so let's see. What about kind of a different question, but you talked about negotiating with a picture company, and I think that's a great point that a lot of advisors are teachers, you know, in their background, and they sometimes get voluntold to be a yearbook advisor,
Yes.
and they're like, okay, and so they have to learn design and writing and whatever, you know, all the skills. Negotiating contracts, negotiating a sales, listening to a sales pitch probably not in most teachers' background. So, do you have any advice for that? Like, what kind of things do you ask, and how do you go into that conversation?
Well, I want to know, okay, what are we going to receive from you? What and then are you expecting us to provide? And how are we going to communicate? If I need you to come take pictures of my Miss Niece pageant, how, setting up is there a limit to how many photo opportunities that I can ask you to cover for me?
Right.
How many photos can I expect to receive from you for that? And things like, just for me, it's ease of scheduling. Like if I need them to come cover a play or a ball game or something, and I want them to come supplement my photographers, is there a limit to those? How do I schedule those? What can I expect from that? And for me, it's relationships. Now those reps may change,
Right.
but I need somebody that I connect with, can build a relationship with, and I feel like they're going to be receptive to my needs. Because it is a business relationship, but teachers have to do those with their colleagues, with their administration. It's just a different level. But don't be afraid to ask for what you need. The worst they could say is no. And then if you have that same list of questions and you go into a negotiation with 2 different companies, you can then compare their answers, look at, because it's not always about the financials. It's
Right.
also about what are they going to take off your plate, or what are they expecting you to do? Like one of the sticking points for me is I don't feel like I should have to deliver photo packages. They have the same access to the parent emails and mailing addresses, that shouldn't be something that I should handle. But if it is, you need to know that going in. And so asking as the photo company, what do you expect from my staff and me in this partnership? And if they're asking and you think it's too much, maybe that's why you go a different way. is, and sometimes you don't know until you get into it. And I think that's why it's a good idea to do a yearly contract. So at the end of each year, you can sit down and go, okay, here are the things that I thought went well. Here are the things that I was not very happy with. And that way you're not blindsiding the photo company if you decide to change, but you've given them an opportunity to address your concerns. And that's important too, because just in the nature of business, you don't want to be blindsided, and you don't want to blindside anybody else either. It's just keeping that communication opening and not being afraid to have that conversation.
Yeah. I like what you said a lot about it not always being about the money. Like, I think a lot of times from the administration standpoint, they think, well, it's not the cheapest. I want the cheapest. These are, tax dollars, our parents' dollars, we're at a low income school, whatever the reason might be. But from the advisor perspective, I think advisors really have to learn how to advocate for yourself and speak up about what you need. Because if you don't have a curriculum, if you don't have cameras, if you don't have a, training, like those vendors provide those services. Yes. So, even though they might not be the cheapest, it's worth paying for them, because they offer those things.
Yeah, because photo companies should be coming in to help train your students. They should be helping you with some equipment. And they should be there and as a partner with you. And so it's that relationship is everything. And it's, like I said, it's what the school is getting commission wise. I don't think it goes into our yearbook account, but that's not.
But there are other ways that they can help you. Sure. Even if you can't get that commission, if they can come in and do a session on, photography or donate a camera, like that is so helpful.
And one other thing they do for us, which is great, you will, whether you're at a relatively affluent school like I am, but all of our students are not. And so one of the things they do, especially for senior portraits, if a student has, need and can't, we do a last chance on campus senior portrait shoot at no cost. So we don't want a senior not to be in the yearbook because they couldn't afford the city.
Right.
And we don't require that students purchase any of the senior portraits. It's just about getting that portrait done for the yearbook.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think that that's fair across the board, and sometimes people have their own photographers and thing. And obviously if we can promote them, it's a partnership. We want to give them the business too, but within reason. So those are really good things to keep in mind and questions to ask for portrait vendors, but also for your yearbook vendor, like when you're negotiating those contracts too, keep those questions in mind and advocate for yourself, tell your administrator and them what you need, because that's really important and kind of uncomfortable probably for an advisor that doesn't have, a background in business maybe. So
sometimes it's good to have one of your administrators in that conversation with you, because they a lot of times have a little bit more of that experience. And maybe you and the administrator have a conversation before you go into the meeting. So you kind of know, all right, this is kind of what I'm wanting. What do you need, and so that you're both on that same page when you go into that negotiation.
Right. Yeah. That's a really good idea. Okay. Well, the second thing that I would love for you to share is also related to photography, but club picture day, which again is also a big logistic nightmare, scheduling and all the kids involved. Tell us all your secrets.
It's organized chaos, emphasis on the chaos. We are fortunate on Wednesdays, we have, our block schedule on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, but Wednesday we have, all the classes are just a short, and then we have what's called Excel. It is an hour of time when students can go to a study hall, retake a test, go to a club meeting, go get lunch, hang out with their friends. They have XLA, XLB. They're each 30 minutes. So that's when we do our club photos. And it's difficult to pack 74 clubs into 2 hours. We do it over 2 days, but we've kind of figured out how to make it work. If you can do it during, a certain period of the day, you kind of want to do it all at one time, because most schools probably have students that are in multiple clubs. We do. So what I do is I get a list of the clubs. I reach out to the sponsors to find out, okay, about how many students do you have in your club, and schedule them. I try to stagger small, large clubs. I try to separate all the honor societies, because that's a lot of kids are in all of those honor societies. And then I save the really big clubs for last, like National Honor Society has over 300 people. So we do that one absolutely last. And I publicize on our media, various media, the schedule. I send the schedule to the club sponsors. We used to try to do passes, and so the kids would have to bring their pass, and that just was a
They
logistical
lose it and
paper nightmare. So I just have the club sponsors communicate to their students. I also put posters up around schools so that they can find their club time slot, and the time slots are like every 2 minutes. And we ask the students to be there 5 minutes before. And so outside of our gym, we have this big courtyard. And so what my students do is there are 2 doors. We have door A and door B. And so we have a photographer for each side of the gym. And so the clubs come and they report, okay, I'm the president of robotics club. And so we hand them the sign for robotics club. They gather their people, and then we go, all right, robotics club, come in. And so they come in the door, drop their backpacks in the middle of the gym floor to keep it open. And then they gather in the first section of bleachers. And then they move down to the next bleacher section and get lined up, and somebody makes sure the lines are all even. And then they move to the end of the bleachers where their photo is taken. So it eventually kind of is sort of an assembly line, and then they exit out the back doors. It is chaos. It is insane. I do a lot of yelling on those days. But we get it done. And so I think the most important thing is have a plan, have a schedule. You are going to have kids going, oh my gosh, I'm in that club too. And within reason, we'll wait and let them. So that's why we stagger it in 3 separate moves. So they know, okay, I can finish with this one. I can run across the gym to get in the other one. And so it's chaotic. And I don't know how else you can not do it chaotic and try to keep the class interruption to a minimum.
right.
But over the course of the years, we've just kept refining this thing. And so last year when it actually worked, we were like, okay, I think we kind of figured this out now. So I don't know how else to do it that's not chaotic on some level, but we do a pretty good job of getting all the kids. They know that's their day. They know to wear their club t-shirt or whatever. Probably the biggest problem we have is we have usually a couple of class clowns that want to try to
That's
get
what I was
in
gonna
every club picture.
say.
And we discourage that, but it happens.
Right. And the more formality you have, and the club president is there, and they know what to expect, and they have t-shirts,
Right.
that kind of cuts down on it. So if you can encourage your club sponsors to get t-shirts, and that's a good reason to, discourage the clowns, but they happen, especially for probably NHS. Like it's easy to sneak in a picture with 300 kids.
Yeah.
So I love that. Okay, so what about gathering the names and the rosters for all those clubs?
Well, that is we have tried in the past, since we have those 3 groups, to get the names, and that takes longer than it does to move and take the pictures.
Right.
So what we're doing this year is that we are reaching out, because this year we have a new state law that requires any student in a club has to have a parent permission slip.
Okay.
So we have a little bit more of a paper trail for rosters this year. So we are reaching out to the club sponsors to get those rosters. We've gotten a few, and then I have a staffer who that's one of her jobs, is to go around and harass these sponsors to get
the rosters.
So hopefully it all works out. And we do have a fair amount of students in yearbook that are in a fair amount of clubs, and they can help us get their clubs and their friends' clubs.
Right.
So that's been we haven't always put names. The first few years we just put the pictures. We're like 20, because we've been as high as almost 3,000 students. We're down a little bit, and we just were like, okay, that's a hill we don't want to die on. We'll just put the club pictures. But now we're to the point where we think we can get those names, not necessarily identified left to right,
row by
just
row.
a list of names.
Yeah. I mean, I think with sports rosters, it's important, if you can, to add that context of front row, back row, whatever, especially with jersey numbers. That makes it pretty easy.
Yeah.
But with club photos, if they're in the club, they're listed. If they're in the picture, they're in the picture. Like, I think that's totally fine. And that's something I would advise an advisor, if they're new, like, don't stress about something like that. Like, just get it in there or don't. It's fine.
Yeah. If you were a new advisor, I would not add that stress of trying, especially at a big school, trying to get all those names. That's one thing I would not waste time working on. Like I said, this is year 6 and we're finally gonna do
Right.
it. So
yeah. And I'm sure, if you submit to a contest, a critique, they're going to say, hey, you need names. Yeah, you do. Okay.
Yeah, we do.
But
Yep.
you pick and choose your battles. So
Exactly.
it's okay. Okay. Any other advice you could give about your portrait or group picture day?
The only other thing I was going to say about senior portraits is we do a rising senior meeting at the end of the junior year. We tag team with a lot of the senior advisors, so they kind of know what their senior year is going to be about. And the portrait company reaches out to parents. This year, for the first time, we have about 550 seniors. Usually we have about 100 that don't get portraits done, but we did that last chance portrait day. We got that list of who was missing and reached out to them specifically, and that helped get our numbers down. We have less than 50 that won't be in the book in the portrait section, which I feel like is a big accomplishment.
For sure. So that actually brings up another question going back to portraits. When you have students that don't show up for picture day, how do you handle that? Do you put them as not pictured, or are they just not in it because they chose not to be, or
we do a retake day, and we try to communicate to those who weren't there, depending on if we get that information from our photo company in time. And so we try to reach out to those who didn't to get the underclass photo. If they're not there, we'll run a list and try to get them in a mod, in an interview somewhere else in the book, so that, that the whole idea of 0 zeros, that there's nobody at that school that's not in the book somewhere. It's a goal. We're not there, but that's what we aim to do. With seniors, we do everything we can to get every single senior in the book somewhere. We're not as picky with underclassmen. We're working toward that, but we're not there yet.
But the seniors, they matter. Not that they matter more as humans, but they matter more with the yearbook. Yeah.
Right.
Do you guys,
to me though, that the underclass pictures are what we get the most complaints about?
Yeah.
And
probably
for
because
a yearbook staff,
they're not as knowledgeable.
We tend to think those pages are they require so little creativity that we tend to sometimes look at them as not as important, but they are. And that's what parents and students get the most upset about. If there's a student who, say, gets promoted mid-year, like at the beginning of the year, he was still classified as a freshman, but then at the semester break goes up to a sophomore, we have no way of knowing that.
Right.
So one of the things I have started doing is reaching out at the end of the first semester to our registrar to say, hey, are there students who are being promoted over the winter break into the new semester? And wherever possible, we go in and make those changes and move them into the correct grade.
Right.
That doesn't always happen. But again, that's something I've learned over the years that I didn't even know that was a thing when I first started. But we do try to fix those things as much as we can.
For sure. As much as you can. I mean, you still, hopefully have like a disclaimer or something in the back of the book that mistakes happen, but, we want to honor those students in the correct way. So, okay, I was going to ask, and this is, something that we have in Texas, it's called privacy codes. And so students or parents really that don't want their students featured in the book, how do you manage those? In particular, how do you manage the seniors?
If we get that list and we, normally I will especially communicate, if the student had their senior portrait taken, I will just double check, hey, you're on the no photo list.
Because you presume if they took it, they want to be in there.
Yeah. And so we just double check that. The same thing with underclassmen. We honor those requests, and I run that list at the beginning of the year, and just when I go into our student name list, I pretty much just take them out. So they're not even in there as an option,
right?
Just to protect that privacy.
Right. So that's something I think new advisors especially also need to be aware of, is removing those students, because it's the law. You have to remove them by their parents' request. But I do think it's a good idea if you have the time and the data to go and notify them, because a lot of times they check that off like, oh, I want to be private. They don't realize it applies to yearbook, or they don't realize even what they're clicking. Our district, one year, they switched from paper registration to digital, and the default selection was private, and then there were like it was like half the school was on private, and I was like,
Yeah.
I can't contact half the school, so that was a mess. But be aware of that, like
Right.
definitely look up privacy codes and make sure
And
you
as
know
an advisor, you're going to get to know everybody in your school on a level that nobody
you
else
never
does.
expected.
The registrar, all of the administrators, everybody who, your business manager, all of that kind of stuff, you're going to need to cultivate relationships with all of those people, and they're your best friends. If you have a registrar, like our registrar runs us a copy of every kid's schedule electronically so that we can look up where a kid is during this period, and we can contact the teacher. Can we interview the student? And it's just such a great help. So if you got to make sure you're reaching out and getting to know those people in your school that
For
can do
sure.
these things for you.
Bring them a cupcake, do what
Yes.
you gotta do to get them on the good side.
Yes.
For sure. Okay, so then tell us how you manage yearbook distribution, switching gears a little bit away from photography. Especially at a big school, I'm sure distribution, that was something I actually really loved to plan because I like logistics and projects. But yeah, tell us how you do it.
Okay, well, we sell about 1,300 books a year, which is about little more than half of our population, and it's grown every year. We've done it several ways. We do first 2 or 3 days, we do seniors only, because seniors get out of school a week to 10 days before the rest of the school. And usually it's a mad dash for the yearbooks to get in and get prepared and get distributed before the seniors are done.
Right.
So we make sure the first 2 or 3 days of distribution are seniors only. We set up 2 tables divided by alphabet. And students have to show their ID and then sign to pick up their books. We tried 2 years ago to do wristbands because so many students, their parents buy the book and they don't know they have one, so they don't know to come and pick it up. So we tried the wristbands and nobody wanted to wear a wristband. So what we've done, again, my beloved English teachers, we send them lists of all of their students who have purchased books, and we have them put that up in their classroom, or just kind of, hey guys, a lot of you have gotten yearbooks, come check. And that has pretty much done it. We also publicize it everywhere. I send an email directly to parents to say, hey, remind your child that you have a yearbook to come pick it up. So we do pretty good. I would say we distribute about 90% of our books. We have a few stragglers that'll come in over the summer or at the beginning of the next year. Well, I forgot. But
Right.
so one thing I will say, my first year we decided, nameplates. Let's go ahead and put the nameplates on the book. Then when somebody comes in with a nameplate, we'll just give them the book. Disaster.
Yeah.
Because somebody would look at the list and not see nameplate, give them another book. So now we're stuck with a book with a nameplate on it that we can't give to somebody else. So what we've done is I go in on the list and I highlight in a certain color everybody that has a nameplate, and the kids know what nameplates are. They know how they work. And so I just give the student with the nameplate and the book at the same time. One other thing I do during distribution, while my students are manning the other tables, I run the troubleshooter table, which I handle sales and I handle anything. I bought a book, but my name's not on the list, which you get a lot. So they come straight to me. So my students don't deal with those issues. I'm fortunate, again, I have my planning period is during one of the lunch periods. So I'm able to be out there the whole entire time for distribution. We distribute during the lunch periods. There are 3 lunches. And so I run the troubleshoot table, and that keeps the students it keeps it moving a little bit faster. We do include a disclaimer about, check the book before you write in it. Make sure everything's there and nothing's missing and no pages are torn. And once you put your name in it, that's the end. This is a student produced publication. We try to do our best, but there are errors just, to cover for those boo-boos. We do distribution for about a week. And then after that, the students are directed to come to my classroom between classes to pick up their books. And then, like I said, we leave a box up at the front over the summer with the list of who needs to pick it up. So, and we end up getting rid of almost all of our books.
Right. it sounds very similar to how I managed it because I also had quite a few. I mean, it was over 1,000, almost 2,000 books at one point, which is just crazy. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a lot easier to just do it during a lunch and have them come to you. I know some advisors distribute through the English classes or advisory and stuff like that, but I don't want to have to do that work. I'd rather them come to me.
Our
So
books are too heavy.
they are
They're
so
like
heavy.
5 pounds a piece.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is logistic, getting them down to the lunchroom, but
Yes.
the
Fortunately,
staff
we
can do that.
also have, we've been able to find a spot on our campus that has a room we can lock
Oh, good.
so the books are secure, whether it's a classroom that's not being used or a storage room or a conference room. Over the years, we've done it different places, but it's a central place and location where the books are secure and they're not filling up my classroom. And it's a central place where the kids can come.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so going back a little bit to nameplates, I was always a big fan of nameplates over name stamping because
Yes.
you can't fix a book that has a mistake on the
Right.
stamping.
Exactly.
So I
Yeah.
guess you agree. Yeah.
Yes, totally. I
Okay.
don't even know. We've never even thought about offering the name stamp pretty much for that reason. The
Yeah.
plates are pretty and they look great. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and then students can put them wherever they want,
Yes.
and that helps, I think. But something that we always had a challenge with, aside from the like you said, the logistics of does this kid have one or not,
Yeah.
is they would come in these little boxes. Do you have any ways how do you figure out how
Okay.
to put them on the tables and
Yes. When
find
they
them?
come in, because sometimes it'll say Susie, class of 24, and you don't
Basketball.
know yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to run the report from the sales section,
Mhm.
and it will have the parent and the student name and what the tag what the nameplate says. So I have a student who, here's your job for this
Right.
quarter, is to take that list, nameplate, put the student's name and grade on a sticky note and tape it so the sticky notes come off, but tape
Mhm.
it to the nameplate. And then we put them in alphabetical order by grade, divide them up into two for the two tables. And so when you see nameplate, you go and find that student's name. That's very important because a
Good.
lot of them
Yeah,
will
I
say,
like that.
congratulations, Joe.
Right.
And you don't know who Joe is without looking at that list. So that's a big thing of preparation for distribution, is making sure you match the nameplate to the student name, grade, all that stuff.
Right. Yeah. That was our biggest challenge, I think, with those nameplates. And I like the nameplates a lot, but I was like, I had one year I had them on a poster board that I taped them all to and to try and see them all at least in order. And that was a challenge though, because the poster board was falling over and stuff and multiple kids trying to grab stuff.
Yeah.
So, I think that they're finding a system though that works for you.
Yes.
I love the idea of sticky notes and then being able to sift through them because you'd see like kind of like a file system.
And we put them in the box with the nameplate at the bottom to the heavy. So then you just see the little
filter
thing,
through
you
them.
kind of scroll through there and then pull it out.
Yeah, that's great and super easy. So, when your staff are prepping for distribution, they get out, I'm assuming, as like a field trip day that day to like prep before lunches, or how do you
Not really. This year we're going to have to do that because our yearbook is usually the other lunch period on our block days. And so this will be the first year yearbook got moved to the first period of the day, which is anyway. So yeah, we're going to have to do a little bit of field trip for those days that we don't have the course. But we when we get the books in, we do inserts for our spring sports. So we have to do all of the inserts, all of the checking of all of that. So we just have a few class days, and then I have students that say, hey, I have a free period here, or I can come in early, and they can earn some extra points by coming in and helping prep for distribution.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Man, well, it sounds like you really have like a well-oiled machine that you have your kids they know what to do and they're doing it. And I think that also, breeds a culture of other kids that when they come in, they understand this is the expectation. And eventually, like we said, a couple years in, it becomes just a system. So let's see, did we miss anything? Do you have anything else that you wanted to touch on and share with,
Well,
people
the
who are
one thing I
watching?
would say about social media, we market our sales mostly to parents. What we want to do with students, we don't want to say, hey, students, buy a yearbook all the time. We want to tease them with content. we want to, sneak peek a few things, or we'll do a package on the news show about what we're doing in yearbook, or we'll show a part of the cover blurred out so they can't see it. So we're trying to generate the interest from the students and the sales from the parents.
Right.
And we've now, I think, got that culture where students, when I was working on a yearbook page the other day, and a student wandered through and was like, is that one of the yearbook pages? And I was like, yes, it is. He's like, oh, and so getting the kids interested in what you're doing, and then get the parents interested in buying what you're doing, has really worked well for us.
For sure. Yeah. So how often would you say you guys are posting on social media?
The goal for us is 2 to 3 times a week. We don't always get there, but we want, we do use it for to drive content. We'll ask a poll question, or, hey, what did you do during the hurricane day? Send us your pictures. We don't do too much of that. We kind of keep pumping out information.
Right.
We'll do fun TikTok reels of what we've done, Bama Rush Talk video,
Right.
with
Yeah.
staff in the door of the classroom. And we kind of just want to want kids to think, oh my gosh, they're having so much fun, I want to be part of
Right.
that. So it's a recruiting tool as well, with social media, just kind of showing the fun side of what we do.
For sure. Yeah. I think that there's so many things you can learn from other advisors to other programs on social media. So I'm going to link yours down below so other advisors can take a look at it, because it's one of those things where advisors know I need to be doing it. My students need to be doing it, but what do I post? Because if you just do sales messages all the time, no one's going to follow you for that.
Right.
So making sure you're posting things of value in addition, I think is really helpful.
I went to JEA up in Boston last week, and I went to McKenna Bush, who is at Meade High School in Oregon, and she is like the social media queen. And went to her session on social media, and it was really interesting. One of the things she said was that use your stories and reels for the fun stuff, the stuff that's not permanent, that is going to go away for announcements and things, and your post to be things that when somebody searches you up, they're going to see what is permanent, what needs to say, and brand your social media with, and be consistent. Ours, we change our profile picture once a year, and it is a tease of our cover. We use the same design elements of our cover in our Instagram profile picture for that year. So the kids kind of get a little bit of an idea of what we're doing each year.
Yeah. That's very cool. Awesome. Okay. Well, I have one last question. I know these go by so fast. We've already been chatting for about an hour, and I could go on for probably 6 hours straight, but with you, we're talking to a brand new advisor who is probably feeling very overwhelmed. I know not just brand new advisors listen to this, but what advice would you give to a new advisor who is feeling stressed, and they're super busy and they want to do really well at this and they enjoy it, but they're needing some encouragement? What would you say?
Do what you can do. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be fabulous, especially if it's your first year. Your goal is just to get it done. Now, I had to, that first year or two, I had to let some designs go that weren't perfect, that I looked at them and thought, oh, this is really not good. But I was more about, let's get it done. Let's make it the best we can. That first year, I didn't have a color palette. I didn't have a font palette. I had a theme that we did on the cover and a little bit in the opening and the closing. But other than that, I gave kids kind of free reign to design how they wanted to. And I was and also as a new advisor, that let me know, okay, here are my design stars.
Right.
Here are my photography stars. Here are my writing stars. Here are my editing stars. And so it helped me get to know the kids, and sort of especially being a new advisor coming in after another advisor, they liked having that ownership. Now, by the end of that first year, when we got ready to do the next, they were ready to, okay, let's go to the next level. And so every year we've set a few goals. If we want to do another session sometime, I have a really great end of year sort of evaluate the year day that I've adapted from a couple of different places, but you take your staff through a whole, what did we do well? What did we not do well? And set some of those goals for next year. All right, next year we want to make sure we have a consistent design palette. Next year we want to consistent with the way we do names or whatever. You're not in those first couple of years going to do everything that everybody tells you have to do.
Right.
You don't. Lean on if your photography rep, your printer rep, hopefully you have amazing ones like I do, but let them help you and let them help you prioritize. I know mine sends out monthly checklists of here's what you need to be thinking about. And the bottom line, that first year, you just want to get it done. After 6 years, if it makes new ones feel any better, this is the first year that I have ever completely made deadline one.
I bet that does. I've sure
always made final deadline.
Relieving, right?
But you're probably not going to make every deadline, and that's okay, as long as you make that final one. And learning how to do that ladder and all that. Like I said, your first year, you just want to put it together and get it done. Right. And you're going to look back on it and go, oh, this was terrible. But it's not terrible. If it gets done, your kids like it. And the students. And
everyone learned along the way.
Yes. And the students that get it, they're going to be happy to see their pictures and see their friends and see their activities. You may get some pushback. That's another thing too, is developing that thick skin and realizing that people just want to be heard. And most of the time you can just and I have gone home in tears after some nasty parent emails. But you just got to realize that they have their one little baby precious to be concerned about, and you have all 2,000. Exactly. And so it takes a while to develop that thick skin. But you're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And find some other advisors either in your district or that use your same printer that you guys can share ideas. I do this every time we get new advisors in our county. I email them and go, hey, whatever you need, just email me. And I
think community is huge, like getting people that understand what you do, because there's only one advisor on campus. So
which is why I'm so thankful for what you do.
Thank you. That's exactly my goal in life, really, but also with this interview series is just letting people into your classroom and seeing how you do things, because it's really hard, especially if you're brand new, to go and reach out to people that are strangers and ask them these types of questions. And so that's my goal, is to try and, give that insight that you normally wouldn't have. So awesome. Well, thank you so much. I so appreciate you taking the time to share. You really have mastered a couple of these logistics things that are really challenging to advisors, in particular new advisors. And I would absolutely love to have you on again towards the end of the year and talk about how to evaluate and improve, because like you just said, year one is just survival. Get that book out. Hopefully it's on time. Take some notes for next year and then improve. And, that debrief process, I think, is so important in making those goals happen, so let's definitely plan that for later on in the school year. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.